everyone! Today I'll be going over Beginning Java Lesson 3. So as a quick review of the previous lesson, let's go over these questions. So what is a scanner? When is it used? And what are the three types of loops? So pause, think about the answers to each question and come back once you're ready to see them. So for the first one, a scanner takes in an input from the user, and a scanner is used when programs need user input, like Hangman, guessing games, or any other type of program. One kind of loop is the while loop. This checks if a condition is true and then executes the code. Next, we have a do while loop. This type of loop executes the code first and then checks if a condition is true. And lastly, we have the for loop, which starts as a counter until the condition is false. So in this lesson, we will be learning about if statements, casting, random numbers, and the string API. So an if statement is used to check if something is true or false, and this is the syntax of an if statement, where you have the condition as something is either less than, equal to, or greater than something else, and then your code. An else if statement is used after the if statement to check if something else is true or false, and it will execute if the if statement is false. And lastly, we have the else statement. This is used after the if statement or else if statement, and is executed if none of the above conditions are met. So it's your turn. Make a program that asks the user how old they are and print something based on their age. You want to create at least 3 different categories using the if, else if, and else statements we just learned. And a helpful hint is to use the double ampersands to see if 2 conditions are true simultaneously. So give this a try and come back once you're ready to see an example answer. So an example of what you can do is the following, where we have the scanner set up and ready. And for each of these statements, I'm checking whether the person is not yet a teen, the person is a teen, and the person is an adult with the else statement. And this else if condition here is checking if the age is within 13 and 19 inclusive with this ampersand. And now on to casting. So when you cast, it makes a variable of a certain data type behave as a variable of another data type. So a common example would be casting a double into an int, and casting is essential for generating random numbers. So to cast in code, you would write the int wrapped around parentheses before the number or the double value, in this case num, because it is a double variable carrying 3.0, and when you cast it as an int, it will produce 3 and not 3.0. Now random numbers. So before we get into things, let's first understand what math.random does, and this is like the basic building block of creating random numbers. Math.random always returns a double from 0.0 to 0.9 repeating, so never quite reaches 1.0. Some examples are 0.234, 0.891, 0.067, etc. And now on to generating random doubles. So this is the general formula for doing so. If you want to generate a random number from the minimum value included to the maximum value excluded. And over here, we're using the math.random to generate a random value. And this over here helps us define a specific range for our random double to be in. So it's not just from 0.0 to 0.9 repeating. And this is an example of it in action, where we're trying to get a random price from 5.0 to 10 excluded. And this is just me plugging in the values to show you what it looks like. And obviously you can simplify this down to 5, but I'm just showing you what it looks like with the formula. And now to random integer. So if you want a random dice number from 1 to 6 inclusive, what do you think you should do? You might think that we would write a similar piece of code where you just cast it as an int using the random double formula. But that is wrong. And the reason why is we can never get 6. And this is because when we do math.random times 5, we get a random double from 0.0 to 4.9 repeating. And when we cast it as an integer, it cuts off the decimals. So we end up getting 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And lastly, when we add the 1 at the end, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but not to 6. So that is why this is wrong. To fix this, we simply add a 1 after we subtract the minimum value from the maximum value when determining the range, and this will ensure we get minimum to maximum value included. So this is the updated version where we get random numbers from 1 to 6 inclusive. And again, the +1 works because it gives us 1 extra value, so we do not mix the maximum number. So quick pop quiz. Which of the following statements returns a random double between 4 and 23? Pause and give this a shot. So the correct answer is B, because remember, this part over here is max minus min, so it's 23 minus 4 gives us 19, and the +4 is the plus the minimum value to shift it up, so we get random double from 4 to 23. And now it's your turn. In a CodePad, generate and print a random double from 1.0 inclusive to 28.0 exclusive, and a random int from 1 to 27 both inclusive. So give this a go and come back to this video once you're ready to see the answer. So this is the answer, and what you would do to generate a random double given the range is the following, where you apply the random double formula, and this is what you get. And you can see that it is the same for a random int, except for this int casting. However, the random numbers generated are different. So for the double, it's 1.0 to 27.9 repeating, but never quite 28. While for an integer, remember, it cuts off these numbers after the decimal point, so we get these discrete values 1 to 27 exactly. All right, now to our last topic, string API. So in case you don't know, API refers to Application Programming Interface, and the string API helps us manipulate strings. So this includes many methods, but we'll be mainly focusing on equals and other important methods. It is also very versatile, so we'll also explore that too. So first, the equals method. It is used to check if strings are equal to each other and returns a Boolean value, true or false. An object is required as a parameter, and is written as dot equals string parameter after a string. So in this code piece over here, the if statement, when it runs, it will print true since both strings hello world are equal to each other. Next, we have length. This returns the length of the string as an integer. No parameters are required, and written as dot length after the string. So in this case, since the string variable is str, we will just do str.length and it will print 11. And this 11 will include this space character right here. Next, we have the char at. This returns a character at a given index. The index is an integer value, and that is required as a parameter. It is written as .char at index after the string. So in this case, if we want to find the character at index 7 of hello world, we would get O in this position, because remember, it is always 0 index. We always start at 0 and we move on. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next, we have the substring method. This returns a new string that is the substring of the given string. The starting and ending indexes are required as parameters. It is written as .substring start, end after the string. So if we want to find the substring from 0 up to 5, so this is excluded, then we will get hello, because we're going from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5 is a stopping point. So you do not get the space. So now it's your turn. Create a variable that stores your full name, first and last, and use the substring method to print your first and then your last name. An extra challenge, if you have time, is to pick a random integer from 0 to the length of your full name exclusive and print the character at that index using the char@at method. So give this a go and come back to this video to see some answers to both parts of this exercise. So for the first part, this is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is identify which index gives you your first name and which one gives you the last name. So for Jane Doe, it'll be from 0 to 4 exclusive because it's 0, 1, 2, 3. And it'll go up to the ending index -1. And for the full name, it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to the end, which is 8. But you can also do it this way, where you simply just put 5 because the substring method will assume that you're going from 5 all the way to the end. And here we're just printing out the names separated. So let's see what that looks like. Perfect. We have Jane and Doe. Nice. And now for the challenge, we're simply generating a random index that's an integer using the full name's length as the range. So we're using the .length method. And then we're finding a random character at that random index. And then we're printing it out. So when we do that, we get, a random character like E or D. Okay, so as a quick exercise or project, create the higher or lower game. And this classic game essentially has the player guessing a random number from a certain range. And you tell the player if their guess is higher or lower than the number. So you want to be using things learned throughout this lesson and the previous lessons, such as the math.random, scanner, loops, variables, and etc. So give this a go. But first pause this video, give this a go, and come back to see the sample answer. So what you could do is the following, where you have, the scanner set up and everything, some game variables, max and min numbers. And in this example, we have a certain number of tries the player has, as well as a while loop to see if the player wants to play again or if they don't want to play. And these are extra, you don't have to do it, but it'll be a good practice if you can try this out. But the more important part is just, the game logic, where we have if conditions to check whether the player guessed the number or if the player guessed a number that's higher or lower than the actual value. And if it is, we will print out the answer. And if you would like to see this answer code in more detail, simply go to this tiny URL and you can make a copy of this and just tweak it as necessary. But feel free to explore this sample code if you want to. Okay, so as a review of this lesson, provide an example of using scanners in a project we haven't talked about, compare while loops to do while loops, which is better, and lastly, how are if statements different from else if statements? So pause, think about it, and come back once you're ready with your answers. So for the first question, the first one, an example could be to ask the user to guess a number in a higher or lower game, the one we just did in the previous slide. And really anything that requires a user input is valid for this first part. And for this one, a while loop does something before checking, and the do while loop does it in the opposite order. So neither is better than the other. It really depends on your preference on which loop you like using or the type of problem you're doing. And for this last question, if statements precede the else if statement, and the else if does the same thing as the if statement, but only executes if the if statement is false. And yeah, that is it for this lesson. Thank you for listening.